Welcome everyone to this week's edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. Thank you all for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to spend it here in the spirit of community, mentorship, and learning. I'm your host, Chelyn Hall. I'm a customer success manager at Salesforce and a military trailblazer. Each week, we invite a co-host or co-hosts to take part in the conversation so that we can leverage their experience, expertise, and unique perspectives. The focus for this evening's session is translating skills to Salesforce equivalents, how to decide what path to take. So if you have ever been interested in finding the right career path in today's market, this is the session for you. So just a reminder for everyone, this is our second to last live session for a bit. We're kind of pivoting to a new format here in the very near future. So our next session, the final live recorded session, will be the 19th of this month. So make sure that you tune in for that one as well. And the wonderful Dave Albright will be leading that session for us. So this evening, I'd like to welcome and briefly introduce our co-hosts for tonight's session, Chelyn Brand, Dave Anderson, and Mike Nolan. Tess was unable to join us, unfortunately, this evening. She is on some military duty right now. So Chelyn is a LinkedIn growth strategist at Aspire Hired. She is also very active within the Trailblazer community, volunteering for both Midwest Dreamin' and Forcelandia community conferences. Dave is an account executive at Salesforce. He is also an Air National Guard veteran and previously was a military recruiting program manager at Salesforce. Mike is a senior manager for the Military Recruiting Fellowship Program at Salesforce. He is also an Air National Guard veteran and the former Salesforce VetForce Global President for 4 years, among numerous other volunteer roles supporting the military community. It is so great to have you all co-hosting office hours with me. Welcome.
Thank you, Chelyn.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take a few minutes for you each to just introduce yourselves further, share your Salesforce stories. So Chelyn, would you like to go ahead and kick us off?
Sure, absolutely. I actually pivoted from being a leader in a large insurance company, and we evaluated different CRM solutions and selected Salesforce. So I was a customer from being a brand new implementation, and that really inspired me more from what didn't go well to figure out how I could have done it differently, and saved up and quit my job and became Salesforce certified and pivoted into Salesforce, which was about 6 weeks before COVID hit. So that was really interesting timing. So I had to figure out how to have my 9-year-old twins learning at home and have made this big career pivot, and didn't qualify for any programs because I did it on my own. So LinkedIn was my conduit to Salesforce world, and just kind of slugged through and learned a lot along the way. And now that's a focus that I have and work with Salesforce partners to help them leverage LinkedIn to attract talent, attract clients and investors. So it translates really well from the recruiting side and candidate.
Yeah, interesting time indeed. I can imagine 6 weeks before COVID, right? Everyone's world was turned upside down and everything was changing so quickly. So really interesting. I did not know that, Chelyn. So really interesting fact. Okay, Mike, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Mike Nolan. Chelyn did a great job of a quick intro for me, so I don't have much to say, but been here at Salesforce just over 10 years, so that was a pretty big milestone for me. Great company. I'm excited that everybody carved out some time tonight. Dave, who was on my team, who is now part of our sales team. We've done a bunch of these. We love doing these. So hopefully you all get some good content out of this. And one thing, just to be sure, let's make this a conversation. We don't want to be talking to you. So don't be afraid, get involved, because that's what we're here for.
Awesome. I was going to say, Mike probably needs no introduction. Most of the people in the military community know you. So always great to have you here. And Dave, do you want to bring us home?
Yeah, for sure. And just like Mike said, I think the best way to do it is just keep it conversational. And it's kind of funny. I mean, that's really what we do here at Salesforce in sales, is with our products is we really just tell a story. And that's kind of how that's how this works. And the best thing about this is a funny story is I talked to Mike back in, I honestly think I was on the Air Force PT pad in 2019 is the first time I talked to him on the phone. And asked him a couple questions about Salesforce, which I was somewhat familiar with, but just as a platform. And next thing you know, I've been here almost 4 years and been 2 different roles. So it's been quite the journey. But it starts with a quick conversation on how do I translate these skills to working at some tech company that is called Salesforce. And there's ways to do it.
Awesome. I know that is top of mind for a lot of people on this call is how do we take those skills? I mean, it is the theme for this call, right? Some of those military skills and how do we translate those into a good role for the individuals moving forward. So we'll do a little bit of admin here. So for those of you that are joining for the first time, I always like to briefly explain the purpose of these office hours. These sessions are an informal get-together for gathering with military trailblazers and allies to explore non-technical Salesforce career and branding related topics to help you achieve your professional development and career related goals. This next hour is intended to be an opportunity for collaborative mentorship. As Mike and Dave and Chelyn were saying, everyone on the call is encouraged to step up, help answer questions, ask questions from your perspective. It really helps us provide additional diversity of experience to the answers that are given. Please make sure to keep an eye on the chat window. My 2 partners in crime, Dave Nava and Dave Albright, will be posting some great links in there throughout the session this evening. So make sure to keep an eye on that. If you would like to ask a question at any point during today's session, please feel free to do so. If you do not feel comfortable speaking up, you can also post your questions in chat. The 2 Daves will be monitoring that along with myself. And we will also be looking for raised hands throughout the session today. Finally, tonight's session is being recorded. So if you would like to share an attribution-free comment, please let me know before speaking, and we will make sure that it is edited out of the final recording. Okay, now that that is all out of the way, we're going to jump right into our questions. So this first one, I am going to actually direct at Dave because I think he has the most recent experience with this. So looking at transferable skills from the military and non-technical backgrounds, as someone who has made the transition into the Salesforce ecosystem, can you describe some key transferable skills from the military that you find are highly valued in the tech industry?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say the first one is that I really think about, and it's something that I probably wouldn't have said initially on these calls, and I think I've done a few of these, was I would say just our resiliency throughout your military career. That's one thing that's kind of like built into you from basic training to the academy or whatever. It's all kind of the same as just having resiliency. And I'm learning in sales, I definitely have to have resiliency and, when I show up and how I show up. And Dave Albright's laughing because he knows what I've been through in the last 8 months. And I think that's one of the things that's just super important. But like, how do you really translate that, right? And you want to have a quick story of explaining how you did that. And then depending on the role that you're applying for, make sure you can basically add that. For instance, like if you're looking at a solution engineer or something like that, if you have some sort of situation where you were working with technology in the military, which all of you do, where that technology was not working very well and you had to get the mission done, whatever that was, relating that and telling a story on how you were able to basically either take that technology and make it better, or how you, basically asked for new technology and implemented it or something like that, and how you taught others to use it, or maybe you found a new way to use that tech that was, not working as well as you wanted it to. And then just describe, what the impact was at the end of it. And I think, there's lots of different ways. So I would say resiliency is probably the first one. And then, calm under stress or duress. I mean, that's something all of us have in the military. And I think that's something that you will see a difference when you transition out. Especially for our military spouses as well, is like, I've seen that side of it is handling stress. Because sometimes as a military member, when we move to new stations, like we're just kind of doing another job, right? Where you're running the family, you're running everything. So there's handling stress there. And then being able to tell those stories of how you did that throughout the military, especially because if you get to that interview, you kind of made it. And now it's time to basically show, that there are all these translatable skills, and there's all these different acronyms and things that we've used that are actually very similar to here in tech, and you absolutely have those skills. And then depending on the type of role, I think there's, I tend to lean away from saying project management. But in the military, we know we have great experience with project management and program management. So I would say saying, at least bringing it up in a way, and then just, explaining how you took a project from point A to, Z, and all the people that were involved and everything that you did and what that impacted, and using dollar amounts, especially depending on, if you're customer facing or not. So non-technical dollar amounts are always important. What did that product cost, or what did that project cost or program cost? And then what did it execute to? Like, we executed $2 million here, and that saved us, this much time in, let's say, air flight refueling or something like that. Just because if you use dollar amounts, I've noticed in translating, like, anybody can go, oh, okay, so we're using air flight and refueling time, and you could use time that you're giving back to an employee. Like, someone that's interviewing that can totally understand that, and they'll walk through it with you, and then they might get them to actually, ask you more questions, which is super valuable, because then you just have more time to translate that experience, and you'll feel more comfortable when you hear them. I would just kind of understand where you're coming from. And sorry, I think that was 3. I wanted to give 3.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Storytelling, right? All of that came back to storytelling and be able to effectively tell stories. So I'd like to open it up to Chelyn and Mike. Anything you'd like to add to what Dave said? Chelyn, I think you might be on mute.
Thank you. One of the things I was going to say is it helps to have a framework and to have some of these stories really planned out and practiced in advance. It feels a little bit, manufactured, but in the moment, it helps so much. And one of the frameworks that I think is particularly helpful is having just really briefly to set the stage and to say, in my previous role, and describe that. Identify a transferable skill, something that you're trying to, connect the dots to this new role. Describe the action that you've taken, highlight the impact. So right on about, equating it to dollars or anything tangible, and then tying it back into the new role. So just having frameworks that you work with can be so helpful. And I would say that ChatGPT or any AI is a great way to take some of the job descriptions of the roles that you've had in the military and just ask it to translate it into maybe the more corporate speak, so that you might be interviewing with people that just don't understand the importance of the elements or the role or how it relates. And if you can translate that into the language that they're used to, just in terms of the role, that can be really helpful.
Yeah, great point. Oftentimes that there seems to be this large gap between what we've done and what a corporate type of role needs, and finding that path to be able to connect those two can seem daunting at times, but it's so important, especially to that storytelling ability, that when you break it down and you start really looking at things, there's a lot more similarities than you might at first think. So Mike, anything you would like to add? I know this next question I'm going to kick over to you first, but want to give you the opportunity to add this.
Just kind of reinforcing what's already been said, but there's a reason we're 1% of the population, is because we're wired a little bit differently. What Dave said about resiliency, this is, you wouldn't have had a military career if you kept going back saying, hey, I didn't get the job done. So it's really bringing that out in you. That's just the way you're wired. The one thing that we're kind of both Chelyn and Dave were saying about, understanding and translating, the best way to do this is just have conversations with others who served or military spouses, and just say, hey, tell me everything about what you do. And hey, how did you translate that military experience? So make it simple, like here, all other people are doing it, and then just, insert your own experience into there. So that's the only thing that I could add to this.
Yeah, great point that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are other people that have done this, and we'll get into that kind of networking bit here a little bit later. But this next question, Mike, I give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm going to come to you first on this one because I know you've done a ton of work internally at Salesforce and externally with really helping look at what are some of those common misconceptions that you see about transferring military skills into Salesforce skills, and how is that addressed?
The best way to address this is translating, and I'm sure a number of you have heard me say this over and over again because I'm a broken record, but when you can translate your experience properly, what we should expect 99% of the time to be a civilian, they should know whether you're talking about the US Navy or Old Navy. So that's really the biggest thing. Because STAR methodology, situation, task, action, result, you take yourself out of the situation, but you walk through, because a lot of leaders really want to get down to all right, when you were given something to do, you had a task, a sale, whatever it may be, customer, when you hit a roadblock, did you throw your hands up and say, I can't do it? Or did the wheel start spinning? Say, I'm going to go around this, we're going to move it, whatever it is, but it's not stopping us. Ultimately, you complete the goal. So that's really, a lot of times it's the mindset of how your brain operates and how you get out of tough situations and ultimately get the job done. So that's one of the biggest things that I would say.
Yeah, Dave, you had kind of alluded to this before, that things are different, right? Sometimes in the corporate world. So what are kind of some of the areas that you found as you transition? We're used to maybe communication style one way. What are some of those things that really were different and you kind of had to adapt to?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. I mean, I would say just like your initial, and it's a good one. The first one I have is a good one, by the way. Everybody was nice and really helpful, and everyone wanted to help me, get a hold of this new job. And I honestly couldn't believe it when I started. I still felt guilty, asking someone, hey, how does this work? How do I do this system? I felt so guilty. And then finding out that everyone wanted to help me was wild. So that was one of the big things. And then I would say the whole new, and I mentioned earlier something about acronyms, but the corporate world has all their own acronyms as well. So before you start, or when you start doing your research on a company, definitely look into the corporate culture and different things like that. But even ask ChatGPT, what are some of these, acronyms that they use. For instance, I did in the sales world, I knew, all the different levels of a solution engineer and then the different parts of within that. And now I'm still learning all these new acronyms all the time, because now I'm working on the Department of Defense side, which fortunately is a little easier because there's a lot of acronyms that blend over. But yeah, there's a lot there. I would say also the other thing that's a little different too is you might have a supervisor, but let's just say you're a little bit earlier in your military career. When you come to Salesforce, most people are going to expect though that when you get a job, that job is that you have it and that you're ready to roll on your own, and there isn't going to be this training or OJT, and this might be coming from more on the enlisted side, but you're not going to have that OJT time to be oh, hey, how do I actually wrench on this airplane to make sure that, all these, this tech order is done correctly so this airplane flies safely, right? Some of that's going to be more with me. I mean, when I first moved into sales, I was on sales calls within the first week, and they're yeah, you're running the whole thing. And I was oh yeah, awesome. And so you gotta be ready for that. And but most of us come from in the military, I will say, you do have that resiliency where it's kind of hey, I'm gonna figure it out, and I do know that this is mission critical. And sorry, I'm not sure if I answered that all the way, Chelyn, but
Yeah, you did. And something you had mentioned before stuck out to me. I've said this before, but that calm, cool, and collected, sometimes for me, we see it it's a great thing. Sometimes I had to be very cognizant of, okay, how is my customer taking this, right? If I am very stoic and oh yeah, this is nothing, and it's a huge deal for them, sometimes meeting that customer's energy, I was oh, but I'm supposed to be that one that's everything's fine, nothing is wrong. So sometimes that was kind of an eye opener for me. Is okay, I have to meet the energy. Sometimes it's okay, so that they know that yes, I understand where you are. I care just as much as you do. So that was an interesting point. So Chelyn, I would love to have you answer this one because you were not in the military. So I'd love to hear some of those things, misconceptions, maybe something that you've found or that you've heard that that maybe there are ways to kind of combat that or overcome those misconceptions?
Yeah, I think working one-on-one with clients that were in, moving on in their careers, one of the things that people would often say is that they were having to kind of start over, that they were having to, come in, they wanted to do Salesforce or learning, but they were having to start over. And there was a lot of pressure in that from just, finances and their career and their interest. And it took a bit to convince people that that was not the case, that this experience that you have is so valuable. And in many cases, the work that someone's doing in the military has so much more responsibility and impact than some of the jobs that they would be having in civilian life. And so to really take pride and ownership of everything that you're bringing to the table. And today, there's so many companies that are facing just massive change with AI entering the mix. It's a really challenging political environment. There's so many dynamics right now of having a team member that they can go from an interview and think this person's going to be able to handle change. They're going to stay focused on, the mission at hand, the deliverables that we have. They can work with a lot of different people. They can take direction. They can show up. There's some of the challenges that employers have. They're getting such benefit. So I would say that's one thing, is to really own the experience that you have and do the work to figure out how to translate it, because it's really going to be on, all of us when we're interviewing to actually be able to articulate it and to be, confident and build that comfort. I would say the other piece is knowing that there's and I love, David, what you were talking about people wanting to help.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on to LinkedIn and in the search bar, you just put Salesforce plus military, you will come up with more than 2,000 people that have Salesforce and military in their profile. And so immediately you can see this just huge pool of people around the world who are going to naturally be inclined to be open to connecting, to having informational interviews, that piece. The other one is Salesforce plus Talent Alliance, which I don't know if you all will get into that, but just that alone will bring up more than 1,000 people who are also Salesforce oriented Talent Alliance. So there's all kinds of companies and leaders who are going to be naturally inclined to connect, be open to talking about opportunities. So there's so much. And I think right now the energy is a bit challenging online right now about many things, but there's a bit there with Salesforce, and to know there's so much happening. There's so many jobs. There's so many companies that use Salesforce to run their businesses, that there's incredible opportunity, and to just be able to kind of you leverage that composure that you all learn on the job to bring it to that positive energy, that can do, find the mission, find the opportunities, and there's a lot of it there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Consistently, Salesforce is in the top 3 software companies in the world, right? So it's not just Salesforce itself, it's not just consultancies, but the customers, the number of customers that Salesforce has and uses the Salesforce platform is just mind-blowing when you think about it. So some of those roles, although it may not seem directly like a Salesforce job, in a way, you are still interacting with the platform. And so those skills that you can gain are still helping you in that end role that you're going to be in, because there's a good chance you might be interacting with the Salesforce platform. So Chelyn, Iris, go ahead before we go to our next question. Good to see you, by the way, Iris.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. What a fantastic panel. Absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to ask, because everybody's here, I looked at who's on the call, and there are people who are, they've watched a lot of the videos that you guys have put up on the office hours network. And last year, was really hard for a lot of people breaking into the new ecosystem. And so coming into 2025, they're really looking to see what avenues that they can take, because it seems like employers aren't as interested in new talents. Like everything you see, they're asking for that experience, where it's that chicken and the egg scenario. So where can we like get our people to shine when there's like 2,000 people going for every single job application that pops on LinkedIn?
Mike, go ahead.
So I'm Iris. I'm more for the personal approach. That I mean, me and you have worked together for how long? But this is really where I encourage people. Just keep connecting with people internally within Salesforce. Have a conversation. Hey, who can I talk with? Hey, can I just, do you think it would make sense if I have an informational conversation with your boss? If there may be a position coming open in the future. You've got a lot of external talent, but trust your brothers and sisters and military spouses, our military community internally to help you navigate. Because you think, if I'm referring you to my boss because we've had a good conversation, what my boss has already at least got an idea of what he's working with me. He's got somebody who's been with the company over 10 years. Like whenever I get a project, I just do it. I'm easy to manage. So, kind of use that same approach and just really don't stop. Just make it like a goal. I want to have 5 conversations a week, 10 conversations a week. It'll be far more enjoyable, I will tell you that, than sitting there and submitting 100 applications, tweaking cover letters, trying to do this and looking at jobs that you're like, that's the perfect job for me. And then you get nothing, or, hey, we filled it. Sorry, thanks, but no thanks. So I always say go for the personal touch. It's more work, but it's more fun.
Yeah, for sure. Completely agree, Mike, right? Part of hiring manager's job is to look at risk, right? So if they already know someone, let's say, and you're recommending someone, they know that risk kind of goes down a little bit. So definitely agree with those connections and yeah. Dave Albright.
Yeah, I've said this on here before, right? Like you have to network, right? And Mike is spot on, right? Being able to network. We all know each other within either the partners or, because a lot of us have come from partners, or we know partners that we work with. We know the different teams internally, right? Like we passed a Mike or Dave Anderson or, pro services, customer success. We know all those folks in there and you like when we talk to people, first of all, they can kind of screen you and say, well, what are you really interested in? And a lot of times people are like, well, I really don't know. And then you can kind of start to get some information about it. And then, you can just meet people that pass you around to where you think you might fit. Part 2 is, the chicken and the egg that Iris just talked about. And I talk about this a lot, right? Cecilia, good luck. You're getting ready to go for that first cert, and that first cert, as I've always said, is emotional, right? You're going there and you don't really have a lot of experience. You're trying to take this cert. You're like, ooh, and those certs are a little rigged as it is because you have to know the exact answer, which is not technically how you actually do config, right? You usually go plot around. Dave and I plot around all day trying to find the right button we need to hit. But what you can do, and I find this very powerful, and is start coming up with some kind of portfolio. Go get a dev org, right? Dave and I probably have tons of orgs. Go sign up for a dev org and just build something. Build something on a use case that you deal with on a daily basis. Either your military life, your personal life, if you're a military spouse, if it's, tracking the kids around, setting up schedules of who you got to go, where the kids are going to for overnights, think of how you can build that in Salesforce. Okay, the kids have a bunch of friends in the neighborhood. Well, I'll use the contact object and build that out so that you can actually show how you use a database. If you can walk into an interview, regardless of whether you actually have experience doing consulting or config, and say, hey, I don't have a lot of experience, but here's a use case I found. Here was a pain point and problem in my life that I used the platform to solve, and then walk them through it. You won't get any questions because you don't have they won't have time. They'll just be watching you talk about how you identified pain points, a use case, architected it, and solved it with the platform. That is consulting. And so I think that is the prime way to do it. And then you just kind of show this work you've got. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not going to be picture perfect production like we're all used to, but the fact that you can do that says a lot about you. So I've gone on a little bit too much, but that is really, really powerful to be able to do.
I was just going to add a little. Oh, I'm sorry, Sherry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that one of the things for that's such a perfect use case to use the featured section on LinkedIn and just screen record with the Loom and just share it like you were presenting it to a client to say, here's a use case. This is what I built. Here's the outcome. It can be just a quick, 2-3 minute thing that allows your profile to showcase things that you can't put on a resume.
Absolutely. I don't think it's used that much, right? Not very many people utilize that. Iris, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you do decide to build a dev org, which is absolutely incredible advice, start simple. You don't want to be like me, who gets a little bit ahead of herself, and then all of a sudden you've got like 50 that you're like, okay, I've lost where I'm going. Start small, go big.
But sometimes you learn those lessons the best way when you just fail miserably at something. You're like, I know I will never do this again. So it's okay, Iris, you think big and you just go for it. Michael, we're going to kick it over to you for your question or comment.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me here, and it's great to finally make one of these. And it's nice to see familiar faces for a change on the internet. It's a weird space for me anyway. But back to the reaching out and making connections part. Is there any professional advice? I kind of struggle with it myself, to where, well, I'll be honest, social media wasn't my thing when as I'm in the service, right? And so as I'm transitioning, I'm seeing the value in LinkedIn and building a community and network, right? And so are there pro tips to get over that imposter syndrome and, you feel like you're bugging everybody, nobody's answering when you're thinking they should answer? Is there, do you keep persisting? Is there pro tips on that, on how to get over that? I'm sure I'm not the only new person to this game thinking the same thing. At least I hope not.
Well, Michael, luckily for you, we have just an absolute guru here, Dave Nava, who has done this very successfully. So Dave, without further ado, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chelyn. Good question, Michael, and good to see you on the session. Michael and I had a call. Gosh, I think it was yesterday, but like my days run together. So good to see you. And one of the things I forgot to mention, was on my list, and I got sidetracked, was Candorful. So I'm gonna go ahead and post that link in here. I don't know if you've taken advantage of it yet, but essentially, that skill is a muscle, and you have to exercise it to be good at it. And I can tell you right now, if I had to go into an interview or try to network live with folks, I wouldn't be that great at it because I haven't had to do it in a while. So the answer is really just get out there and do it, and you're gonna not be great at it at first. And the more folks you talk to, and you can practice on, family members, wife, whatever, the more times you do it, the better you'll get. Candorful is a free resource to provide mock interviews for folks, and they provide detailed performance review afterwards, and you can do up to 3 or more interviews. It's a great way to talk about yourself, get over the nervous jitters. And obviously it's not necessarily networking conversation. It's more kind of further down the line in that, but it's the same skill set, right? If you can talk to an interviewer and sell yourself, then you can talk to someone at a company and say, hey, can we chat for 10 minutes and learn about your role? And then, would you feel comfortable maybe having an employee referral avenue for me? So yeah, just get out there and kind of just do it.
Yeah, great advice, Dave. Just do the thing, right? Just do the thing. Sometimes it's going to be uncomfortable, and no surprise that military people are not the greatest at social media. Usually we're kind of told like, not something you should be dabbling in too much. So you are not alone, Michael. Megan, you had your hand up next. If you have a comment to add, also great to see you.
Muted.
You're on mute, Megan. But it looked like you were saying something really good.
It was like really important too. I can't believe you all missed that. No, first of all, I hope everybody's going to DC World Tour in March because I get to go in person. I'm very excited. I will be demoing our AI agent, which I'm furiously building right now. But I did want to let Mike know Post-Veterati is now coming online, and Evan Guzman runs that. And so there are a lot of people that were on Veterati before are coming back to the new like revamped platform. And so there are going to be thousands of people on there. And I pushed that one a lot. I used it. Priscilla was on there. Priscilla's not here tonight, but she was one of the first people I connected with on Veterati was Priscilla. And she was the one who helped basically facilitate most of like my way into Salesforce. I had Priscilla on this side and I had Iris on this side, and that was it. And so that's just another one to put out there.
Amazing. So that is fantastic news, because there were a couple of people on here, Kimberly, Stacy, that I first interacted with on Veterati. So that is great news that it is coming back. It was an amazing resource. Dave Albright.
Yeah, so you guys have heard us before, anyone that's come on. Dave Nava and I always play yin and yang on, I am an extrovert in person, kind of. I don't know if I am anymore from work from home. Dave tends to be an introvert in person, but he's an extrovert on social media. I'm an introvert on social media. And so we've both really essentially ended up in the same spot. So all of you that are out there, like, I don't want to do social media, or do I have to? Like, one, push yourself a little bit, because social media is important. LinkedIn is the only one I'm still on, but it is important to make the connections, right? To be able to just reach out. And particularly like Mike Nolan was saying, hey, do you mind spending 30 minutes with me and doing it on, reaching out initially on LinkedIn? But if you're not on the other stuff, like, for those of you know, I came from the aviation world, right? The airlines, when I was going into it in 2018 or so, you had to have profiles, and all those profiles were watched, right? I actually was paying someone to look at my profile and scrub it. And so you don't have to go that far, right? Use it. But if you're dead set against it and you don't want to do it, you can be okay too. There's other ways to reach out to people. So I always like to play that counterpoint.
Oh, to have known Dave Albright prior to the scrubbing would have been just so hilarious, right? Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, and one thing Dave Nava forgot to mention is that in the work that he's done over the years with these office hours videos, I think there's about a half a dozen of them in the YouTube channel talking about building your personal brand, building that perfect LinkedIn profile, branding versus bragging. But it is going to be a shift, yes. But the easy way to think about it is, like, we all put that uniform on. We all wore it. Like, how difficult from veteran to veteran, veteran to spouse, whatever it may be, there is no discomfort level. Like, if we were in the same uniform and we were working during the day on whatever job it was. So use that same approach. When you send a LinkedIn invitation, add a quick note. Hey, fellow veteran here, military spouse here, I want to do what you do. Would you mind hoping to having a conversation? And, I'm a big KISS guy. Keep it simple, stupid, because it works for me, but you don't need to overcomplicate it, and have fun with it.
Awesome. Chelyn, we're gonna go over to you, and then we're gonna take a pause to take our branding photo.
Yeah, sounds good. Just quickly, I would say sometimes people feel very awkward about posting. And if you're ready to lean into that, that's terrific. But you can have incredible progress just commenting and being very strategic of having conversations and commenting and connecting just quietly. So I would say that's just as valuable. And the other thing, Michael and Neil, your comment made me think about, if you are reaching out, to 10 people and 3 are getting back to you and engaging, that is a really very successful engagement on LinkedIn. And sometimes that's really hard to get used to people not responding or ignoring and not taking it personally. It just isn't personal. It just is the way it is. And even well-meaning people that will get back to you at some point or could be a great connection, they just don't. And so I'd say that's something to just expect and be really okay with it, and take the smaller amount. It's still really valuable.
Yeah, I think about the posting piece, and Kimberly and Stacy, you two come to mind with just how well you've done with this. Stacy, your blog as you were coming new into the ecosystem, and Kimberly, your newsletter for the Dallas user group, right? Oh my goodness, the number of people that look at that now, just great ways to really put yourself out there. It was probably uncomfortable at first, but just so great for you all to share your stories and have an impact. So you two have definitely been success stories for sure when it comes to getting outside your comfort zone and just posting things. Okay, so I told you we were going to take our branding photo. We are definitely over the halfway point. So before I forget, because I tend to forget, we're going to take our photo for today. So this is important because, as we've been talking about a little bit on this call, we always want to make sure that we're branding. We will post this on LinkedIn and X, also known as, or formerly known as Twitter, tomorrow, and we'll tag everyone in the photo. So if you have only your first name showing in your screen and you would like for us to include you or tag you, just make sure to put your first and last name in so we can tag you a lot easier for the photo. And so anyone who would like to go ahead and come off or come on video, go ahead and do that now. We'll give everyone a minute or so before we take our picture, and I'll give us a countdown. Now that we have 3 people, the 2 Daves and myself, someone will have a good picture. I know, hopefully somebody will take a good photo. Okay, all right, we don't see any chats coming in, so that is good. On the count of 3, 3, 2, 1. All right, I think I got it successfully. Okay.
Any of you all ever call me Ashley? I just realized I'm signed in with a different account. Don't do it.
You are. I saw that and I was like, who is this person? I thought maybe we got like a different persona today. I was like, no, this is Megan. This is Megan, right?
This is, yeah.
This is 100% Megan.
Yes.
Megan is Megan all the time. Okay. Iris, you had a question or a comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so I missed a couple of sessions, so I've been building up all my questions. So I'm trying to keep myself in check, okay?
We love your questions, Iris. They're always amazing. You never have to curb them.
Say that. So we've all seen on LinkedIn the Salesforce military, like little chin wags and like little bites and everything. And then I did see that there was a whole Salesforce like military revamp starting. I think it's February 27th or something in San Francisco that they're launching. What does that actually mean for our community? Because like the platform's there, they're still doing community events. I was just like, should we all like start doing cartwheels? Yeah.
Yeah,
Dave,
so
Nava.
happy to take this one. And I guess take it with a grain of salt, right? Because I am not a member of the Salesforce Military Department within Salesforce, and Mike can back me up. I did have a chat with Catherine Clark a couple of days ago about this. For those folks that aren't aware, there have been a lot of structural changes at Salesforce, and the Salesforce Military Department was moved around to the point where funding was uncertain. It was uncertain which department would be responsible for funding. And so folks were have noticed that there's been less support than normal for the Salesforce Military Program, especially in the community. It's been voiced in social media, specifically LinkedIn. And I just want to make a couple points. One, I don't know if anyone has seen previous posts where Catherine was mentioned, but rest assured, Catherine Clark has been working diligently for quite a while to resolve this issue. And she's one person in the vast Salesforce company, and so she's not necessarily in charge of all the funding, right? There are other folks that make those decisions. She continues to work as well as to support the program. What I do know is that I think you saw in LinkedIn, Leah McGowan-Hare's post that there's going to be kickoffs in San Francisco and Atlanta, Indy, and one other location that escapes me right now. Coming up, the one in San Francisco is Feb 27th, and they're just trying to get a pulse in the community for folks, primarily customers and partners, not so much employees, on how the program has benefited them, right? So that we can repivot and reintroduce, the program in the new fiscal year. So I think good things are coming. And I would say if you have the ability to attend one of these sessions coming up, whether it's San Francisco, Atlanta, Indianapolis, or the other one, Chicago, that's what I was trying to think of. Do your best to attend. Your voice will be heard. It is needed. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. Awesome.
Yes, agreed, Iris. Very, very exciting.
I would also say keep the comments coming on social, right? We don't know it necessarily. I would say folks higher up don't necessarily know that there's an issue unless folks mention it. And obviously, keep the comments respectful, and we shouldn't be blaming one person in the company for for the shift in attention, because it's not one person's primary responsibility. It takes a lot of folks to fund that program, but definitely keep the comments coming so that your voice can be heard and we can maintain attention on this really, really important issue.
Okay, I'll do a tiny cartwheel, not a full cartwheel, just a small one.
Iris, any other questions? No? Good. Okay. I'm sure another one will come, which is, once again, always welcome. Your questions are always amazing. Okay. So we talked a little bit already, although I didn't ask any direct questions, about the importance of really networking. Let's talk about mentors. The importance of having a mentor, and how that kind of can play into your goal of finding that right role, that right path for you as you transition out of the military. Let's see. Let's go. Chelyn, would you like to start?
Yeah, and I think that the mentor, like the communities that exist, there's more formal mentor opportunities that can be brought up. But I think sometimes people don't think about the fact you can have a mentor in just a slice, and to find people who can be mentors, whether it's video, through stories, Salesforce Plus and their episodes. And if there's something that you're putting together, you can get mentorship around one element. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, of seeking out mentors and then also quickly becoming a mentor. I think the fastest way to sort of settle into the community and to get some traction, you just need to be one little step ahead to be a good mentor. And this is a community that really rewards that.
Yeah, I agree. Especially people having that trepidation toward, well, I'm just so new, right? Well, you talk to the Daves and I, it feels like forever ago that we were in this situation of like, oh, we're new to the ecosystem and so much changes so quickly, especially around technology. So someone who just did it recently, more recently than the Daves and I did, probably has a bit better of an idea of what it's like now versus, 3-4 years ago. So absolutely agree that you can be a mentor even if you're just one step ahead of everyone else. In fact, you might have more relevant advice than some of what feels like us old geezers now. So Mike or Dave, anything to add?
I'll jump in. So totally agree. Mentors, absolutely 100%. And that's really what I was alluding to in a different way by saying, the people that can be most helpful to you are people that are doing the job that you want to do. And things that I talk about in my mission methodology of the mission to earn a career, earn a job, whether it be here or whatever that job is to take that one step further. And a couple of those people who have been mentors, who have been helpful to you to understand the job, translate your experience, don't be afraid to ask them, hey, listen, and especially, if you're aligning to a job here at Salesforce, because the interview processes have not changed in years. They've been tweaked a little bit, but the steps are the same. So, hey, if I wanted to be a solution consultant like Dave Nava or Dave Albright, I would say, hey, listen, guys, when I start to go through the interview process, could I reach out and get help and guidance from you every step of the way? Hey, Dave, I got my 30-minute call with the hiring manager. What happened on yours? Can you give me some idea? And this is really mentally preparing you and already putting you in that situation. You're going to walk in, you're going to be more confident, you can be more relaxed because you already have an idea of what happened with a couple other people. So I would just say take the mentorship a little further all the way through to the finish line when you get that job offer.
Yeah, great point, Mike. And I think oftentimes people can get busy too, right? And so the importance of being prepared as a mentee, having questions, right? Not just showing up and being like, okay, how can you help me? The mentors want to help, they want to help, but having those questions or that idea of like, hey, I'm thinking this is what I like doing, this is what I don't like doing, what type of roles fit well with what I like doing. Having some prepared ideas or questions and knowing that you will have to put in some effort too, I think will go a long way. I think mentors can get kind of burnt out in some ways when it's just like somebody comes, they're like, hey, I want help. Okay, but that's like a very broad statement, right? Like what do you need? Be okay and don't be afraid to ask for what you need and tell that person how they can help you. Dave Anderson, anything else to add?
I just have one last thing. It's just sort of, something that I learned working here or coming to Salesforce is, I would lean on that veteran mentor. Honestly, that just, I seemed to connect more quickly that way. So I would find someone who was also a veteran and had been in this space for many years. And then also the best thing, right, is, in the civilian world, you don't get assigned mentors, you get to pick them, which is nice. Or sometimes in the military, we were assigned our mentor and maybe they didn't have the same personality. So anyway, finding someone that you can connect with is always good.
Makes the conversations flow a little bit easier, right? Yeah. Forced mentorship does not seem like a great thing. Okay, so we're going to pivot just a little bit in our last, we'll give everyone just a quick chance before we get into our final thoughts that you would like to leave our audience with. Okay, so when we are looking at kind of that trepidation of, okay, well, I was in the military, I didn't do anything that was technical. How do I kind of transition, or how do I even decide, like, can I do something that's technical? Do I want to do something that's non-technical? So looking at that career path, what advice would you have for that decision process of, even though you may not have come from a technical background, you can do technical, or if you choose not to do technical, there are other paths. Let's say, Chelyn, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think that it's such an interesting world. There's so many different roles, and I think it's so important to think about what are your innate skills? What do you really find yourself doing, whether you're getting paid or not? That's something that if it's not in your job, maybe things that you volunteer and do. Where do you lose yourself? What do you read about? And think through and ask questions about what kinds of roles utilize that so that you're really leaning into your skills, because you could have an engineer role, but that you could have someone who is very technical versus somebody who's going to get really interacting with customers and more involved. And to be, know that there's so many opportunities. I think sometimes it can be a little overwhelming to just take one step at a time, and to know that there is just great opportunity, and to be very proud of the service that you've had and know that it transfers directly. And I would say, there's a lot to think about. Anybody who would like to, some support with LinkedIn, feel free to touch bases. I'd be happy to look at some profiles and just give you some ideas, share some resources. And to lean into this community, because it's really impressive to see where people have been able to build their careers over a really relatively short period of time.
Yeah, it's definitely a very special place. And I know very many of us on this call would not be where we are today without this military community. And there's nothing quite like it. I've had lots of jobs in corporate America, and there's nothing quite like the Salesforce community, and especially the military community, the veterans and military spouses. It is just a really, really special thing that we have. Megan, you have a question or a comment?
I have a question. This is kind of a weird one, but since I have a whole bunch of experience here, at what point do you start not finding a niche, but start looking towards a higher like when do you start kind of funneling, right? And this is my question. Like the Daves are like solution architect. Chelyn is like a LinkedIn pro. I've talked to Dave before, Anderson, but I don't really know what you do. And Mike, I see everywhere. But I'm a PM. I'm also an admin. I'm also a consultant. And I'm also a BA. Literally, these are my roles in multiple projects. At what point do you get to have like an overarching, like, this is what I am, so I can do all of these? Do you know what I'm saying? Like where, like, how do you get to that point? Or what is kind of the route you need to take to get to that point?
Sounds like you're already there to me.
I was going to say,
I mean, if you're wearing that many hats, like, what else?
But I mean, like, what do you call it? Like people sometimes, like, you know, when the other Mike O'Neill called and he's like, oh, what do you do? I'm like, oh, well, right now I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. I'm just, what do you do? I don't know what I do.
Yeah.
I do whatever I am asked to do. But like how for brand, not more like branding and not bragging, right, Chelyn? How do you express that? Basically, like I don't want to have it like I really want to clean up my LinkedIn to the back. Like I've been here long enough. I don't feel like I need to put all of my certifications across my LinkedIn anymore. I'm doing the work. I've been doing the work. I did that at Scrum Master, product owner, data analyst. All that stuff is all over my LinkedIn because I was begging as a military spouse who hadn't worked in 9 years to have somebody speak to me. But now if somebody asks me about it, I don't need that there to talk to you about what I do. So when in your career would you guys say that you've seen for people coming over, do you start kind of cleaning that up?
Yeah, I think Dave has some thoughts on this. I would just encourage you, because this is a term that I recently became aware of, look up, and anyone else, I think a lot of military people are like this, multi-potentialite. Look that up. We tend to really be people that do a lot of things well, and we just kind of dabble in everything. So anyone on here, just encourage you. It's a really good TEDx talk to listen to. Dave Albright, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, not at all. I mean, I'm looking at the other two Daves on here. We're all customer facing, right? And so we present what the customer needs to hear or see, right? And that's very important. If you're a BA and they're looking for a BA, you're a BA. If they need a PMP right now, you're a PMP. You've got the background, you've got experience in it. You can leverage it and show. You show what you need to show for that moment, right? And you know, I think to answer your bigger question, when in your career, I think that is really up to you, right? Dave and I still have all of our certs on our LinkedIn and stuff, but that probably serves us well in our role with customers, because customers are going to ping when they see us show up on their calendars. They're going to ping and see who these two knuckleheads are. And those X's, the X's of certs, serve us well in our role. But, you know, you just kind of pick and choose when you want.
To somebody telling me to ask for more money, I did get promoted. My official title at work is BA, but that is not what I am on all the contracts. But my official title now is like an actual business analyst. I was a junior BA until November. Now I'm a BA. So I did get more money. And we're recording, I got a promotion. Thanks.
Congrats, Megan. Okay, I think Mike, I think you were next. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll be real quick. And it kind of ties in, Chelyn, to your question. But you know, the one question I ask everybody when I do an introductory call, whatever it may be, is if you create the perfect job for yourself, what would you be doing? And Megan, for you specifically, because you have so many hats, this is where you need to figure out, like, this is where I want to take my career. But then what you need to do at that point is you need to socialize that. Other people need to know where you want to take your career, because they're the ones that can help you. If you don't socialize it, when I'm like, oh, well, Megan will be happy going from a junior BA to a BA, and we've made her happy. That may not satisfy it for you. So that's why you always want to socialize where your goals are, your career path, so people can help you get there.
Well said, Mike. Dave Nava, you're next.
Yeah, a quick comment, and then I want to make time for Chelyn because I know we're running up on time here. But obviously, you know, if you're in a formalized role with an employer, you're going to have a formalized role name, right? And your LinkedIn profile should reflect that. However, that doesn't limit you to what else you say on your profile throughout all the other sections, like the headline, the About Me section. So what I did, what I relied upon early on when I was still kind of figuring out what I wanted to be and do was I borrowed from other folks. I went out to folks that were in the community that did something similar to what I did. And I borrowed from their profile and not just straight plagiarized, right? Because, but looked at numerous profiles and kind of got a feel for where they were going with it and what the trends were, right? The ecosystem is always changing. Salesforce is always changing. So your tagline today may not resonate with recruiters and hiring managers tomorrow. And I would say that even if you're not looking to get hired, you should always be targeting them, because you never know when your company is going to say, hey, we need to lay off, and then you're going to be looking for a job. So always be, updating your profile, keeping it relevant, keeping it, in concert with the latest trends to be a good candidate, because you might wind up there, without expecting to.
Thanks, y'all.
Chelyn.
Yeah, I think just quickly is most of the time I see that people, their LinkedIn reflects kind of now, but mostly the past, that it's so important to think if you're customer facing, you need to focus on now. But for those that aren't as much, is what you want next. So that if there's 100 hiring managers for that job, like Michael Nolan said, that you want, and they get your profile and they're like, that's it. You could have so many other things, but from top to bottom, it should really hone in on what you want next, including jobs you've had in the past, what you want to feature on LinkedIn and maybe in your resume as well might not be what made you a star in that role, but it's what's most relevant to what you want next. So they look through and it's like, yeah. And that your recommendations, you can let people know, this is what I want next. I'd really love it if you'd endorse my skills or give me a recommendation about this project that lines up with what you want next. So that would be just some advice that could be really helpful.
Awesome. Dave.
Yeah, sorry, and I'll be quick too. But formerly in recruiting, what I did a lot is try to help people conceptualize the types of roles that they would want to go to based on their experience. And somebody like yourself, and yes, Megan, we have had a conversation a long time ago, but I think you could go a number of different ways. You could take your technical experience, but also put that into a customer-facing role, where if you're looking to make a certain amount of money, that's probably the route you would want to go, is more customer-facing. And look at it 3 ways. You have customer-facing, internal, corporate, or technical. And all those at any company you go to, they're going to have those 3 types of roles. And then you want to look at those and go, okay, and if I'm going customer facing, like David Nava, that's a solution consultant or solution engineer. Those are the types of roles. And then it'll tell you the level from there. Principal solution engineer. So that's might be a very high level solution engineer that has all the certifications, who can go stand in front of anyone. Like David Albright, when I was in front of him, he's telling all these generals how Salesforce works and all these different things, right? Whereas someone like me, not very technical. I'm the account executive. I get in there, tell the story, bring all the people together, and then all the technical people present, and then I bring everyone back together, and then we go to the corporate people, and they close the deal. So that's you got to look at it that way, and hopefully that helped and didn't add more questions.
All the questions.
Yeah.
Yes. Big smile hearing Dave Albright telling all the generals what to do. That's just fantastic. I know we are over time, but Michael, we'll get to you real quick before we close out.
Yeah, sorry. I just had a captive audience, so I'll take advantage of it. Mike Nolan, so how does your role change, or is it going to change with that whole Salesforce military kind of evolving?
I'm not affected at all, because it's a parallel program. So the Salesforce Military offers the free certs, the training, test credits, and then it's all for the ecosystem. Luckily, on this side of the fence, we're funded, we're good, and anybody who wants to keep doing fellowship at Salesforce, Tess and I aren't going anywhere. So
Great news. Okay, so we are over time. Appreciate everyone giving us a few extra minutes. I'll give everyone 1 quick minute of our panel. Parting thoughts that you would like to leave with our audience. Let's start with Chelyn. You're up first. And then we'll go Dave Anderson and Mike Nolan.
Well, first, thank you all so much for your service. It's just incredible. the impact that you have here and around the world. And I would say just go for it. Take advantage of the programs, learn, get your, build your technical skills, and hopefully it lands you right at Salesforce. But if not, it's going to just fuel your career forward. So best of luck, and please do reach out if I can support anyone.
Yeah, and I'll just say, if I can support anyone too, I love still doing these calls, and Mike and I go way back. We call them advisory calls. So if anyone just wants to reach out, especially customer facing, I would say if it's more technical, I might not have all the answers for you. But either way, I will definitely try to make time, and I will connect with you and have a conversation. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn.
Just what he said. It's that simple. So happy to connect with anybody. Don't ever be a stranger. Here to help. Like Dave said, this is actually my job and I do love it. So I'm happy to talk with anybody at any point.
Thank you so much. So before we close out officially for the evening, I would like to thank Chelyn, Mike, Dave. Always amazing having you all here. You are Military Trailblazer Office Hours veterans, and you knocked it out of the park again. It has been amazing co-hosting tonight's session with you. Really appreciate you all giving your thoughts and your perspective on the topics that we discussed. With that, thank you all so much for attending Office Hours this evening. Once again, this is our second to last live session for now, so make sure to join our next session on February 19th. Dave Albright will be leading that one, and everyone have a great rest of their Wednesday night.